Let's get money out of the ATM. And then I want to go for a walk.
Why?
What? What's wrong?
Nothing. It is your hair.
I took it off so it could breathe.
I want her to meet my friends tonight. But if she don't wear the long hair, my friends will be embarrassed. My friends will judge her. I was astonished when I saw her. It's embarrassing. She looks older. I didn't believe she's Lisa I used to know. If we are going to be together, she have to wear her wig. She's not gonna go with her short hair.
The moment did not start with shouting. It started with silence. One look in the mirror, one shift in Daniel's face, and everything changed. Viewers thought they were watching a cosmetic reveal, but what happened next felt heavier, darker, and far more personal. From the outside, it looked simple. Lisa removed her wig. Daniel froze. Cameras caught his eyes go distant. No yelling, no dramatic walkout, just a man standing still, like something inside him cracked open. People online rushed to judge. Some said he was shallow. Some said he was cruel. But if you watch closely, his reaction did not look like disgust. It looked like fear. Welcome back to Reality Drama Files. I'm Lily, and if you follow this show, you already know one thing. The biggest explosions on 90 Day Fiancé rarely start with what's on the surface. They start with what people carry inside. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and drop a comment telling me whose side you were on in this moment, because what you think you saw and what Daniel felt might be two different stories. On screen, the moment passed fast. A wig comes off. A pause. A look. Then the narrative online became about hair. But hair was never the real issue. In my opinion, this was a trigger, not a cause. Something in that mirror did not just show Lisa's natural look. It pulled Daniel back into a memory he never planned to relive on camera. Watch his posture. His shoulders tense. His jaw tightens. His eyes stop tracking Lisa and start staring through her. That is not how someone reacts to a style change. That is how someone reacts when their nervous system flips a switch. Fans saw a cosmetic reveal. Daniel saw something tied to a wound he never healed. The show gave us one layer. A man surprised by his partner's appearance. But relationships on this franchise always have hidden layers. Long-distance love is built on screens, filters, angles, and timing. People fall in love with a version. Sometimes that version is still real. Sometimes it hides things. Not in a malicious way, but in a human way. Fear of rejection. Fear of being judged. Fear of losing control of the story. What made this moment different was Daniel's history. On earlier episodes and interviews, he hinted at past betrayal. Not details, not names, but enough to suggest trust did not come easy for him. When trust is fragile, surprises do not feel neutral. They feel dangerous. A surprise becomes a threat. A reveal becomes a question. What else don't I know? If this was only about hair, his reaction would have passed in minutes. The fact that it didn't tell you the mirror reflected more than a hairstyle. From that second on, something shifted in the way he looked at Lisa. Not anger, distance, emotional retreat. Viewers saw a man pulling back, but they did not see why. The show did not show what memory lit up in his mind. The show did not show what past face replaced Lisa's in that mirror for a split second. Here's where the mystery begins. What exactly did that moment remind Daniel of? Who did he see when he stopped seeing Lisa? And why did his body react before his mouth could say a word? Because if you think this story starts with a wig, you are already missing the real trigger. Before that mirror moment, Daniel and Lisa sold a story that felt clean, confident, and easy to root for. On camera, they looked like a couple who had it figured out. The smiles were steady. The compliments flowed. Their video calls showed chemistry. Their photos showed polish. The version of their relationship that viewers met first was smooth, controlled, and carefully framed. Long-distance love almost forces that kind of framing. You don't live in the same space. You don't see the bad mornings, the stress face, the unfiltered exhaustion. What you see is what someone chooses to show. Lighting, angles, timing, presentation. It does not mean it is fake. It means it is curated. Over time, that curation can quietly turn into a fantasy for both sides. Daniel spoke about how drawn he was to Lisa's confidence. The way she carried herself, the way she showed up on screen, the way she looked ready for cameras at all times. For him, that wasn't only attraction. It felt like stability. It felt like control. It felt safe. When you've been hurt before, you don't just fall for a person. You fall for the sense that nothing will surprise you. Lisa also built her version of safety. Looking polished was not only about vanity. For many people, presentation becomes armor. You control how the world sees you, so the world cannot decide your worth for you. On a show where millions judge your face, your body, your choices, that armor becomes even thicker. You protect yourself before anyone else can hurt you. So both of them were building something on screens. Not lies, versions, best angles, best energy, best moments. Over months, those versions start to feel like the full truth. That's where expectations harden. Daniel didn't just expect Lisa to look a certain way. He expected consistency. He expected that what he saw was what he would always get. That's where fantasy sneaks in. Not in a dramatic way. In small assumptions, filling in blanks, creating emotional shortcuts. You start believing you know how someone reacts in every situation. You start believing surprises are unlikely. And when surprises do happen, they don't land as neutral facts. They land as emotional threats. When a relationship lives mostly on screens, the brain fills in gaps with comfort, not reality. That comfort can break fast when real life steps in. Daniel looked confident on camera. Calm. Grounded. Like someone who could handle pressure. But confidence on screen does not always equal emotional resilience off screen. Some people learn to look steady because they learned early that showing fear invites pain. They become experts at appearing unshaken, while inside they are scanning for danger. That's why this matters. The mirror moment didn't just break an image of Lisa. It cracked an image Daniel had of his own emotional safety. He believed he had chosen something predictable, something he could manage. That belief may have been holding him together more than viewers realized. And here's where it gets more interesting. People close to the production have hinted before that not everything looked as smooth behind the scenes as it did on TV. Small disagreements, quiet tension, moments where Daniel pulled back emotionally even before the big reveal. None of that made the edit. Fans saw a fairy tale arc. The crew may have seen hairline fractures. Which raises a bigger question. If cracks were already forming before that mirror moment, then was this reveal the cause, or was it only the moment that made everything visible? Because sometimes, what breaks a relationship is not the first problem. It is the first problem that can no longer be hidden. The night of the mirror moment did not play out like a typical reality TV blow-up. There was no screaming match, no dramatic exit. What made it unsettling was how quiet it was. The silence carried more weight than any argument would have. Fans replayed the clip over and over, not to look at Lisa, but to study Daniel. The micro reactions told the real story. His eyes didn't widen in shock. They narrowed. His breathing changed. His body stiffened. His face lost expression. That is not the reaction of someone judging beauty. That is the reaction of someone going into emotional shutdown. Emotional shutdown is not loud. It is protective. When people feel overwhelmed, some fight, some flee, some freeze. Daniel froze. He stopped engaging. He stopped asking questions. He stopped offering reassurance. From the outside, that can look cold. On the inside, it often feels like survival. This is where surface judgment misses the mark. It is easy to say, he didn't like what he saw. But watch his posture. Watch how he avoids eye contact after. Watch how his shoulders pull inward. Those are fear responses, not aesthetic reactions. His system wasn't reacting to hair. It was reacting to uncertainty. When someone goes silent instead of reactive, it often means they are trying to regain control over emotions they don't trust themselves to show. The tone of the room shifted. Lisa's energy stayed open. Daniel's closed. That imbalance matters. One person reaching, one person pulling back. That dynamic creates emotional whiplash. Lisa likely felt exposed and waiting for reassurance. Daniel likely felt flooded and looking for emotional ground. Fans online filled in the blanks fast. Words like shallow and fake love started trending. But what wasn't trending was a deeper question. Why did Daniel's sense of safety drop so fast? What did this moment take from him emotionally? Loss of control is a powerful trigger. Long-distance relationships give people a sense of control through predictability. Schedules, calls, visual consistency. When something breaks that pattern, it can feel like the ground moves. For someone with a betrayal history, that movement can register as danger. So was this about looks? Or was this about losing the illusion of certainty? Because certainty is not just comfort. For some people, it is emotional survival. Daniel didn't say much. That silence became the loudest sound in the room. And silence is not neutral. Silence forces the other person to write their own story in their head. Lisa was left to interpret. Was he disappointed? Was he angry? Was he judging her? Or was he scared? When silence replaces reassurance, the mind fills the space with the worst possible meanings. That's where damage begins. Not from what is said, but from what is not. Lisa had no access to Daniel's internal storm. She only saw withdrawal, and withdrawal feels like rejection. Which brings us to the emotional fork in the road. Daniel experienced fear. Lisa experienced exposure. Both valid emotions, both moving in opposite directions. The unanswered question from that night still hangs in the air. Did Lisa see his silence as confusion, or did she see it as judgment? Because how she read that moment shaped everything that came after. For Lisa, that moment did not land as a psychological trigger. It landed as exposure. When someone removes something they use to protect themselves, they are not only changing their look, they are stepping out from behind a shield. Whether viewers understand that or not, the person doing it feels naked in a way cameras can't fully capture. Lisa had built her on-screen presence around confidence. Not quiet confidence, visible confidence, polished confidence. The kind that tells the world, you don't get to decide my worth. On a show where strangers comment on your face, your body, your age, your choices, that kind of armor is not vanity. It is defense. So when she removed her wig, she wasn't only revealing her natural hair. She was revealing a part of herself she had protected. That takes emotional risk. Even if you believe your partner will be supportive, there is still a pause inside where you wait to see how they respond. That pause can feel endless. Daniel's silence filled that pause, not with comfort, with distance. From Lisa's side, that silence could easily read as rejection, not of a hairstyle, of her real self. That cuts deeper. That touches identity. The part of you that wonders if you are only loved when you are packaged a certain way. Reality TV makes that wound louder. In real life, a private reveal happens in private. On this show, it happens with cameras, producers, future headlines, and millions of opinions waiting to form. That pressure multiplies every emotion. A small hesitation becomes a big hurt. A quiet moment becomes a storyline. Lisa's public reaction showed heartbreak, not anger. That matters. She didn't explode. She looked wounded. Hurt people don't always get loud. Sometimes they shrink. Sometimes they question their worth. Sometimes they start protecting themselves emotionally because the room no longer feels safe. When vulnerability meets silence, the brain often hears rejection even if rejection was never spoken. At the same time, it's fair to question timing and communication. Emotional honesty is not only about what you reveal, but when you reveal it. If Lisa felt safe enough to share this, why did it happen in that moment? Was it planned? Was it spontaneous? Was it pushed by the environment? Or was it a test of trust? Those questions matter because emotional safety is built in layers. If someone waits a long time to share something personal, the other partner might feel blindsided even if the secret itself is harmless. That doesn't excuse withdrawal, but it explains confusion. From Lisa's point of view, she may have believed she was strengthening trust, showing her real self, letting Daniel see her without filters. From Daniel's point of view, he may have felt trust was shaken because something he thought he knew changed suddenly. Two people, same moment, opposite meanings. That moment also shifted power in the relationship. Before, both presented controlled versions of themselves. After, Lisa felt exposed, and Daniel held emotional distance. When one person feels more vulnerable than the other, the balance changes. The person who feels exposed often feels smaller. The person who withdraws holds more emotional control, even if they never asked for it. Power does not always look like dominance. Sometimes it looks like who needs reassurance more. After the reveal, that person was Lisa. The open question still sits there. Did Lisa feel emotionally safe before this moment? Or was this her attempt to finally feel safe? And once the balance shifted, did she feel like she lost ground in the relationship in a way she couldn't get back? Trust is a fragile thing, especially in relationships built across screens and time zones. Every hidden detail, no matter how small, can grow into a symbol. A missing piece of information suddenly feels like a mountain. A harmless choice becomes proof of deception. That is what happened with Daniel and Lisa. The wig itself wasn't the problem. It was the meaning he attached to it. From Daniel's perspective, the wig represented control, predictability, and certainty. He had believed he knew Lisa completely. When that image shifted, it triggered a sense of betrayal. Emotional logic kicked in. Fear, anxiety, hesitation. Suddenly, his mind was searching for reasons and explanations before his heart could settle. But if you step back, rational logic tells a different story. Wigs are common. People use them for confidence, comfort, or personal preference. Millions of people wear them without issue. In that context, Lisa's wig was not deception. It was a choice. A layer of personal presentation. Daniel's assumption that it was a lie became the lens through which he interpreted the moment. Emotions often override reason, especially when trust has been tested before. In a stressed relationship, hidden details amplify fear. Daniel didn't just see hair. He saw a past he never processed fully. A scenario where someone hid the truth from him before. And because long-distance relationships rely on curated images and moments, even a small revelation can feel catastrophic. One missing piece of context becomes a symbol for all potential unknowns. Lisa's choice to remove her wig might have been meant as openness, as vulnerability, or even as trust. But for Daniel, it landed differently. The difference between intention and perception became a chasm. His fear framed the narrative in his mind before any discussion could happen. At the same time, there's room for perspective. Many couples have wig moments. None lead to divorce. Not all secrets are betrayals. Daniel's reaction shows how personal history colors perception. His fear made this larger than it needed to be. The wig wasn't the enemy. Assumptions and past wounds were. The unspoken question lingered in the room. Did Daniel talk to anyone off camera? Did he seek advice? Vent to friends? Or did he retreat inward, letting his internal narrative spiral unchecked? The answers to those questions could explain why a single moment shifted an entire marriage trajectory. Because sometimes, it's not the reveal itself that causes the fracture. It's the unprocessed reactions that follow, amplified in silence, until they feel unfixable. And Daniel's next moves were quietly laying the groundwork for a decision no one expected. Outside voices always have a way of creeping into private moments, and in Daniel's case, they didn't just creep, they roared. Friends, family, producers, and millions of online fans were all observing, reacting, and commenting. Every opinion became another layer pressing on him. What might have been a private feeling of doubt became amplified through the lens of scrutiny. Family can be the loudest echo chamber. Some people advise with love. Others advise with fear. Daniel's family had expressed reservations about the relationship long before the mirror moment. Small doubts repeated over calls and texts slowly solidified into a pattern. Each message, each comment, each pointed question reinforced the idea that Lisa might not be fully transparent. His fear found validation, not from the wig itself, but from the voices around him insisting it was a sign. Fans online did not help. Social media operates in extremes. Shallow, cruel, or mocking takes trend faster than nuanced, fair-minded observations. Comments calling Daniel shallow or critical poured in, but some echoed his internal worries. When you already feel your emotional safety is compromised, hearing the same warning from strangers feels like proof. The online chorus became a force-shaping behavior before any private conversations even happened. Confirmation bias thrives here. Once Daniel noticed a potential problem, his mind started scanning for evidence that Lisa was hiding something more. Every look, every hesitation, every pause was filtered through that lens. Emotional reasoning overrode rational reasoning. He was not evaluating Lisa's intentions. He was confirming a story he had already started believing. The influence of outside voices is subtle but relentless. A partner can feel pushed, even when nobody is physically pushing. Suggestions, questions, and half-observations accumulate. Over time, internal judgments no longer feel like choice. They feel inevitable. For Daniel, every conversation about the wig, every past comment about trust, and every online debate strengthened the same conclusion: his emotional ground was unstable. Fear grows fastest when it is fed from multiple directions. At the same time, this explains why Daniel seemed distant or withdrawn. His decisions were being quietly guided by a web of opinions, not just his own feelings. It becomes harder to separate what you genuinely feel from what you've been told you should feel. That is why relationships on camera can spiral so quickly. The pressure from outside amplifies every small insecurity inside. And here's the lingering question. The one nobody on screen answered clearly. Had Daniel already taken preliminary steps, like consulting legal advice, before anyone knew? Was the divorce paperwork quietly moving in the background while the cameras captured only tension and silence? That uncertainty keeps viewers glued because it suggests the end was in motion long before the dramatic reveal. When outside voices dominate the internal conversation, the line between personal choice and external influence blurs. And that is exactly where this relationship teetered. Reality TV does something unique. It doesn't just capture moments. It shapes them. Producers set schedules, lighting, and timing, creating a rhythm that can amplify tension without anyone saying a word. Daniel and Lisa were performing their lives on a timetable, and that pressure doesn't just disappear when cameras pause. Every moment carries the weight of expectation, judgment, and storylines that may not reflect what either person feels in private. The mirror night didn't happen in a vacuum. Filming schedules are exhausting. Days blend together. Everyone is aware that every reaction, pause, and glance could become a plot point. Even small discomforts get magnified because reality TV relies on moments of tension to keep viewers watching. That environment alone can make someone overreact or freeze in ways they wouldn't off camera. Timing also matters. The reveal happened after a long day of shooting, after several setups, after multiple takes where both Daniel and Lisa had to be on. Fatigue compounds emotion. What might have been a mild surprise in normal circumstances became overwhelming because the nervous system was already taxed. The hair was a trigger, not the cause. Producers rarely interfere with the heart of a moment, but their presence influences behavior. Cameras focus on reactions, and the knowledge of being observed subtly alters responses. People perform unconsciously. They measure themselves against how they think the audience will perceive them. That can amplify hesitation, silence, or emotional withdrawal. When someone freezes on camera, it's not always about what happened. It's about what the body perceives as safe while being watched. Daniel's withdrawal after the reveal could have been magnified by the environment. Not only was he facing a change he didn't anticipate, he was facing it under a microscope. Every micro-expression, every pause, every avoidance of eye contact was captured for millions to interpret. That pressure alone can make a small crack feel like a canyon. And that leads to the pivotal question. Did this moment become a point of no return? One subtle, quiet reaction can alter the course of a relationship when stress, fatigue, and cameras combine. What might have been repairable in private suddenly feels irreversible. Lisa, for her part, could sense the change immediately. Emotional withdrawal is palpable. Even without words, someone pulling back sends signals the mind can't ignore. She may have felt the shift in balance instantly. His emotional distance casting her as the exposed one. Herself in a position she wasn't prepared to occupy. When withdrawal replaces connection, even the most confident partner can feel isolated. And that is exactly what Lisa likely sensed that night. Emotional safety is invisible until it's gone. For some people, the line between surprise and betrayal is thinner than most realize. When trust has been tested in the past, unexpected changes, even small ones, can trigger a fight-or-flight response. That's what Daniel experienced. The mirror didn't just show Lisa's hair. It reflected uncertainty he was already primed to fear. When someone carries past trauma, every new relationship is filtered through old patterns. It's not about the present moment alone. It's about what that moment reminds them of. A hidden detail becomes a threat. A sudden change becomes evidence. And the mind reacts faster than reason can intervene. Daniel's shutdown behavior was a reaction rooted in instinct, not necessarily judgment. At the same time, Lisa's perspective is equally valid. She removed the wig to show trust and authenticity. Her intention was openness, vulnerability, and connection. From her side, the response she received felt like rejection. That gap between intention and perception is where misunderstandings grow. Both parties experienced strong emotions, both justified by their own context. When one partner perceives betrayal and the other offers transparency, the collision can feel catastrophic. Daniel may have seen danger. Lisa may have seen honesty. That contrast created tension that no camera can fully explain. It's also why long-distance relationships are uniquely sensitive. Without constant nonverbal feedback, assumptions fill the gaps. Every pause, glance, or sigh becomes amplified. There's a fair-minded takeaway here. From a behavioral perspective, Daniel's fear was real, even if the wig wasn't deception. From Lisa's perspective, the gesture was an act of trust. Both perspectives are true in their own frames, yet their truths collided in a way that escalated conflict. That is why emotional safety is so fragile. One person's reassurance may be another's alarm bell. At the core, this moment set the stage for decisions that followed. Withdrawal, fear, exposure, and misaligned expectations compounded. Daniel was not reacting to hair alone. He was reacting to a perceived fracture in the emotional foundation he thought was solid. And behind the scenes, quietly, the timeline for the next major step, the divorce, may have already been forming, leaving viewers to wonder how fast private decisions catch up with public reality. The divorce did not come with fanfare. It came quietly, almost invisibly, until the moment it was revealed. And then it felt deafening. That's the strange power of private decisions on a public stage. Silence suddenly becomes louder than any argument ever could. For viewers, it was shocking. For Lisa, it felt like a betrayal from the inside out. Lisa's feelings were simple but profound. She had taken a risk, removed her armor, and shown Daniel her authentic self. Instead of comfort, she was met with distance. The quiet decision to start divorce proceedings hit her like a tidal wave because it confirmed a fear she may have already felt during that mirror night. The emotional withdrawal wasn't temporary. It wasn't hesitation. It was a boundary being drawn without discussion. Daniel's perspective was different, but equally intense. Overwhelmed by fear, past betrayal, and layers of outside influence, he likely felt trapped. The mirror moment amplified every insecurity, every prior assumption, every echo from friends and family, every comment online, every expectation from the show itself. Starting the paperwork was a way to regain some sense of control in a situation that had spun out of his emotional reach. When private actions finally become public, their emotional volume is amplified for everyone involved. Looking back, the open loops we saw earlier, the subtle tension in long-distance interactions, the body language during the wig reveal, the silent withdrawal, the amplified stress from filming, and the influence of outside voices all converge here. Each had laid a foundation for this outcome. It wasn't one single moment. It was a series of small fractures that together became impossible to ignore. For Lisa, the impact was deeply personal. She felt rejected not for what she did, but for who she was. Daniel's choice, while arguably a reaction to fear and stress, had a ripple effect. The moment magnified every emotion, shock, sadness, confusion, and anger. Fans on social media debated the morality of the choice, but behind the cameras, the reality was more nuanced. Two people responding to stress, history, and expectation in ways the audience could only partly understand. And in this quiet yet powerful move, the big question for reality TV relationships emerges. How often are public breakups the result of private spirals amplified by editing, audience pressure, and unspoken fears? The divorce was more than paperwork. It was the culmination of unprocessed emotion, invisible stressors, and the collision of personal history with public life. The hair was the spark, but the fire had been smoldering for months. And as viewers, we only ever saw flashes of it on screen, leaving so much of the real story just beneath the surface. When it's all laid out, the hair was never the fire. It was the spark, the flashpoint that ignited months of tension, uncertainty, and unspoken fears. Every previous moment, the curated long-distance interactions, the subtle withdrawal, the influence of friends, the pressure of cameras, the internal history of betrayal, led to that spark. Daniel's reaction was not about vanity or judgment. It was about the sudden exposure of vulnerability in himself and in the relationship. Trust, fear, image, and emotional readiness collided in that room. Daniel believed he knew Lisa, but the reveal reminded him that relationships are never fully predictable. Lisa's openness demanded acceptance. But Daniel's emotional landscape was too unstable at that moment to meet it. His withdrawal became louder than words. Her vulnerability became heavier than reassurance could lift. Both were acting on survival instincts in a situation amplified by the unique pressures of reality television. The real question isn't about hair or even divorce. It's about what drives human reactions under stress. Was Daniel shallow? Or was he protecting himself from a repeat of past wounds? Was Lisa's expectation of immediate acceptance reasonable? Or did the pressure of performance create impossible stakes? When you watch these moments, it's easy to judge from the comfort of your screen. But relationships are messy. Long-distance love adds layers of fantasy and assumption. Cameras add scrutiny. Past experiences add triggers. And suddenly, one seemingly small reveal feels monumental. For fans of the show, the Mirror night will forever be iconic. Not because of hair, but because it exposed what was already fragile beneath the surface. Every glance, every pause, every silence told a story more complex than what edits could capture. And while Daniel and Lisa's outcome shocked viewers, it also highlights how fragile emotional safety is and how quickly assumptions can transform into decisions that feel irreversible. So, what do you think? Was this shallow judgment or an instinct to protect a fragile heart? And if you thought this story was intense, wait until we break down another couple who faced a moment of truth and trust, exposure, and expectation that shook their entire relationship. The lessons, reactions, and emotional fallout are just as dramatic, and the mirror there might be even harder to face.